During the coldest months of the Napoleonic conflict, the small riverside village of Hammersmith, then on London's outskirts, became the focus of alarm after falling under the menace of an apparition. From December 1803, locals reported being accosted by a specter draped in a white shroud, which would confront wayfarers and was even said to assault some physically. Accounts stated the phantom would materialize the moment the parish clock tolled 1 in the morning, and the wraith appeared to glide through the fields bordering Black Lion Lane. The inhabitants were convinced this terror was the spirit of a local man who, the previous year, had taken his own life by cutting his throat, and that it issued from the burial ground of St. Paul's Church, then encircled by open fields and unpaved paths. Witnesses described the apparition as a large white entity that struck terror into the hearts of most locals and travelers alike. The specter so thoroughly frightened the driver of a wagon, drawn by a team of 8 horses and carrying 16 passengers, that he abandoned his post, fleeing on foot and leaving the horses, wagon, and travelers behind. In another incident, an unnamed pregnant woman, passing near the churchyard around 10 o'clock one evening, recounted how a tall, white form emerged from among the headstones and seized her as she tried to escape, causing her to lose consciousness. She was found hours later by neighbors, who carried her home and put her to bed. It was later reported that the woman succumbed to fright from the ordeal. Eventually, the villagers concluded that the ghost was, in fact, a human concealed beneath a sheet, deliberately frightening passers-by. Armed with pistols, groups of men began conducting patrols through the streets, hoping to apprehend the culprit. However, the village's numerous lanes and pathways, with their many points of entry and exit, made it impossible to guard every possible route. One patrolman reported an encounter with the specter, describing it as a figure draped in what appeared to be a sheet or a large tablecloth, which the figure discarded as it escaped during a futile chase. The incident culminated on the evening of January 3rd, 1804. Thomas Millwood, a local bricklayer, was leaving his home in Hammersmith. He was attired in the clean white garments of his trade: white linen trousers, a white flannel waistcoat, a white apron, and white shoes. His appearance so closely resembled the described ghost that he had been mistaken for the specter on 2 prior occasions. His own family had even warned him to wear a large coat to avoid such dangerous confusion. That same night, Francis Smith, a 29-year-old excise officer, was patrolling the area, armed and intent on hunting down the so-called Ghost of Hammersmith. In the darkness, he encountered the figure of Millwood, who was dressed entirely in white. Convinced he had found the phantom, Smith raised his weapon and fired, fatally shooting the innocent bricklayer. Smith was subsequently arrested and tried for willful murder at the Old Bailey. His defense contended that he had acted under a sincere and overwhelming fear, genuinely convinced that he was confronting the menacing Hammersmith ghost. The prosecution, however, maintained that Smith's conduct was criminally reckless, driven by superstition, rather than any substantiated threat. The jury initially found Smith guilty of murder, but King George III intervened, commuting the sentence to manslaughter and thus saving him from the gallows. Smith was ultimately sentenced to 1 year of hard labor, a punishment that underscored the legal system's difficulty in adjudicating cases where criminal action is precipitated by widespread panic. The tragic case of the Hammersmith Ghost compelled the English legal system to confront the complex question of culpability when harm results from a mistaken belief fueled by fear. It raised the pivotal issue: could a genuine belief in a supernatural threat justify the use of lethal force? This legal dilemma remained unresolved for nearly 2 centuries, until the 1983 Court of Appeal ruling in R.V. Williams. That decision finally established that a defendant's actions must be judged based on the circumstances as they reasonably believed them to be, even if that belief was, in objective fact, a mistake. In a strange turn of events, not long after Thomas Millwood's death, a local shoemaker named John Graham confessed to being the authentic Hammersmith Ghost. Graham admitted he had disguised himself in a white sheet, initially to frighten his own apprentices, who had been terrifying his children with ghost stories as a form of retributive lesson. He later extended his prank to terrorize other residents. Despite his confession and the tragic consequences of his deception, historical records indicate that Graham faced no legal punishment for his hoax. While his admission clarified the ghost's non-supernatural origins, it failed to eradicate the deep-seated fear or rectify the harm that had been done. Sightings of the so-called Hammersmith Ghost persisted in the following years, suggesting either copycat pranksters or the enduring effects of collective hysteria. By 1824, new accounts emerged, this time attributing a fearsome new ability to the apparition: fire breathing. Reports of the ghost continued until the phenomenon was ultimately eclipsed in the public imagination by the emergence of Spring-Heeled Jack in the late 1830s.